Hey, fellow mathers, before we get into this episode, we want to share with you how you can get access to free content, professional learning that will keep your students engaged and doing the math that matters. Get ready to go to this link, mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge.
That's right. Registration is open for the free Math is Figureoutable Challenge that's starting May 15th and runs to the 17th at 7 p.m. Central. We're going to have 3 nights jam packed with learning and routines that you can take straight to your classroom.
In these challenges, we have a great time. We do some math, talk about classroom experiences, give away super cool bonuses and prizes. You won't just walk away with routines that are naturally engaging and encourage your students to think mathematically. You'll also have a chance to win over 6K worth in prizes, including a few virtual PD sessions for your school. I'll be joined by my wonderful co-host Kim and special guest Jenna Labe.
You can register at mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge for a fantastic learning experience. That's mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge. Now on to the show.
Hey, fellow mathematicians, welcome to the podcast where math is figure-outable. I'm Pam Harris.
And I'm Kim Montague.
And you're listening to a Math Strat Chat episode. What's Math Strat Chat? Well, every Wednesday evening, I throw out a math problem on social media, and people from around the world chat about the strategies they use. We love to see everyone's thinking.
This Wednesday, our math problem was 4 1/3 divided by 8. How would you solve this problem? Go ahead and pause the podcast and solve the problem any way you want. It was 4 1/3 divided by 8. Solve it and then come on back to hear how Pam and I solved it.
All right, Kim, I want to hear your thinking.
Okay. So I saw the divided by 8 and I thought I'm going to scale down because I don't think it'll be a lot of mental effort. So
Scale down.
Scale down.
You mean like you're going to think of it like a fraction and then find an equivalent fraction where you're scaling down. Okay.
So I actually drew a ratio table and I wrote 4 1/3 in the first entry, kind of on the top of my ratio table, and I divided by 8 on the bottom. So my first entry in my ratio table says 4 1/3 bar line, whatever, 8. And then in the next entry, I cut those in half. And so I wrote 2 1/6 divided by 4.
Because half of 4 1/3 is 2 1/6. Okay, cool.
Yep. So then I scaled down again by 2, and I wrote 1 1/12 divided by 2. And I also kind of at that point stopped and said, okay, wait, 1 1/12 is the same as 13/12. So kind of right above that, I wrote 13/12. And then I knew I wanted to scale down one more time. So I was going to cut the 13/12 in half. And at first I was like, oh, half of 13. But then I didn't love what that was going to do and leave me with a fraction in the numerator, which is okay, but I didn't really want to. So I thought about 13/12 cut in half would be 13/24. So that was my final answer.
And that's your final answer, 13/24, because then it's 13/24 divided by 1.
Yep.
At 13/24 divided by 1. Woo! That's why you were finding an equivalent fraction the whole time, because you wanted to find a fraction where you ended up with something divided by 1.
Correct.
Cool. And I'll just note that when you got to 13/12 divided by 2, I actually did think you were going to go 13 divided by 2 and get 6 1/2, which is also equivalent to your 13/24, right? But you didn't want, you were like, nah, that's weird. And so instead you divided the denominator. But totally. That nice equivalence. Cool. Nice partitive approach. So I've been playing with this quotative approach for a reason. And I wanted to give a shout out to Julie Dixon at The Stroke of Luck on Twitter, at The Stroke of Luck, Julie Dixon, for giving the problem actually from last week. I'm not exactly sure where I was. I think I might have been at the Florida State Conference last year when she gave the problem. I believe it was 4 1/3 divided by 8. And or is that the problem we're doing today?
That's the problem we're doing today.
That's
was it
today.
3 1/3 divided by 4?
Yeah, I think it was 3 1/3 divided by 4. And when she gave that problem, it got me really thinking about this idea of when beginning fraction division learners are, if we help them think about this fair sharing context, that it can really help students think about the meaning of fractions. So in a problem, if we're doing this fair sharing thing, then we get to some, we deal with a lot of unit fractions, and the definition of fractions being, if we cut something into a certain number of equal pieces, then it is that kind of fraction. So if we cut something into 4 equal pieces, then each share is 1/4. We get that kind of piece. And so that sort of plays out here, I think, again. So for the way I was thinking about 4 1/3 divided by 8 is, if I've got 4 1/3 brownies, and I'm sharing it with 8 people, well, I'm just going to share those 4 brownies first. Mm-hmm. So, hey, there's 8 of us. We're sharing 4 brownies. Each of us get 1/2. And we've dealt with all 4 of the whole brownies. Now I have 1/3 of a brownie. And here's where this definition of fractions comes in. Like, what does it mean to take 1/3 of something and divide it into 8 chunks? What does that mean? And kids have to really think about taking that unit fraction of 1/3. And if I share that evenly 8 times, what kind of a piece do I get? And I would get 1/24. Mm-hmm. And how kids reason about that by maybe looking at the whole. And if I look at just the 1/3 out of that whole, and I cut that 1/3 into 8 pieces, well, then I've got to cut each of the third into 8 pieces. How many total pieces would we have? We'd have 24. And so what's one of those pieces called? It's called 1/24. That, in other words, using division of fractions can help students actually understand fractions. So it could be a beginning fraction task for students. Even though our standards might say that we're going to do division of fractions much later, we can use division of fractions younger to help students actually understand fractions. And so I think that's kind of a brilliant thing.
Very cool.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So, this week I decided to scale down. And last week, I think it was, when I scaled up, but I was just looking at the problem again and realizing that had I scaled up this time on a ratio table, I could have gotten from 4 1/3 divided by 8 pretty quickly
to an equivalent. And when you say scale down or scale up, you really mean finding an equivalent fraction by scaling the numerator and the denominator up or down. Yeah. And so you're saying, if you would have scaled the numerator and denominator by something up instead of down, what would you go? Oh,
yes. If I would have done times 3, then 4 1/3 would become 13, and 8 would become 24, and very quickly we would have gotten to 13/24.
And bam, you're at 13/24.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very cool.
Super strategy. And mathematicians often play with different relationships and then look at numbers and let those numbers dictate what they do. But like you told me long ago, you might choose a strategy that's super good, but then play with relationships and find one that's even better. Yeah. Nice mathematical reasoning. Good job.
All right, friends, we can't wait to see your math strategy. And we'd love to know if it was like one of ours or something different. Represent your thinking and take a picture of your work, and then tell the world on social media. And while you're there, check out what other people did and comment on their thinking.
Yeah, and tag me on Twitter at PW Harris, or Instagram Pam Harris _math. And on Facebook, look for Math is Figure Outable and use the hashtag MathStratChat. And make sure you check out the next Math Strat Chat problem that we'll post every Wednesday around 7 p.m. Central Time. And pop back here to hear how we're thinking about the problem. Y'all, we love having you as part of the Math is Figure Outable movement. Let's keep spreading the word that math is figure outable. Thank you for listening and making math more figure outable.
To learn even more, make sure you register for our free challenge at mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge. You are not going to want to miss the evenings of May 15th through 17th, starting at 7 p.m. Central.
Math teaching, go register now. That's mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge. Join us to make math more and more figure outable. And if you can't join live, register and we'll send you access to the recordings. We'll see you there.